Happy late afternoon. Happy Wednesday to you and yours. Glad you guys can be with me. It is 4:48 Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, the 11th of February here in 2026. Today's show is brought to you by my friends at Preston Automotive Group and my friends at Factor Meals. More on them in just a bit. I appreciate you guys for being with me today. If you could, like the video on the way in, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership today. Appreciate you guys, and thanks for the patience as I've been grinding my way back from San Francisco and whatever the hell I came back from with. I've been down and out under the weather and just trying to battle through whatever it is that I contracted on the way back, whether it was during just burning the midnight oil or on the way back mid-flight. So anyway, here's what I'm going to do today. There's two new names, okay, first and foremost, that have been added to Jesse Minter's coaching staff. They're reported. These are reported names, not yet confirmed by the team. And so what I'm going to do here is go through those reports, go through those new staff potential candidates, then go to the Ravens website with specific screenshots of who they've announced. And then from there, go to sort of a comprehensive breakdown now that the staff, for the most part, has been officially finalized, aside from maybe some assistants and maybe non-title roles, if you will, or let's call it not as notable title roles. So going to be a lot to break down, but we're going to do that. And I appreciate you guys for being with me. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Matt Zenitz has been involved in a lot of these reports, particularly from the collegiate level up to the NFL. In this case, it's the NFL staying in the NFL, and that is a former NFL wide receiver who is now reportedly the next wide receivers coach in Baltimore. It's Kerry Colbert. He is a former wideout, played with the Broncos. I should say he was the Broncos wide receivers coach over the last 3 seasons. Prior to that, he was at the collegiate level with the Florida Gators and the USC Trojans. Again, he did have and does have previous NFL experience as a former wide receiver himself. And this is somebody that's worked with, he's worked with a lot of players over the years that are names. Cole kind of tallied it up. We'll talk more about this on the collective tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern. Mark your calendars accordingly. But during his time at USC, pass catchers like Michael Pittman Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Drake London came through the program. At Florida, Ricky Pearsall, he's with San Francisco. All 4 of those, by the way, are standout wide receivers in the NFL. And then, as Cole notes here, some Broncos that he worked with who saw development, the likes of Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton. And that's just a few of the many that he's worked with at the NFL level. So there were other names that were involved in the process. Tettleton down in Jacksonville, maybe 1 or 2 others, but the Ravens ultimately land reportedly with Kerry Colbert, former NFL wide receiver, spent the last few years with the Denver Broncos. And I think if we're looking for trends, certainly there's been one trend of interest at the collegiate level, right? Guys like Mike Mickens that we'll discuss more, guys that have had success at the NFL level that either have directly had inroads and overlap with Jesse or indirectly. And that's been a trend. What's also been a trend is some Denver Broncos interest. Joe Lombardi, Kerry Colbert. You could even add Zach Grossi, who's going to be the tight ends coach in Baltimore. All of them in recent seasons have had Denver Broncos experience. And there's an overlap there, of course, because offensive coordinator Declan Doyle used to be Sean Payton's tight ends coach in 23 and 24 before he went to Chicago to work closely with Ben Johnson. And of course, if you go all the way back to the earlier years when Sean Payton was in New Orleans, that's when Declan was first hired, got his first shot as an assistant, as an offensive assistant on that side of the ball before following Sean and being invited with Sean to the Denver Broncos. So you can kind of see how if there is some web, if you will, of connection, this is one of those. There's different sections, different quadrants of this overall staff, if you will, and we're all trying our best to kind of put it together piece by piece by piece. So that was the latest hire from Matt Zenitz. Then Jeff Zrebiec, co-host of mine on The Collective, reported not long after that the Ravens are expected to bring in Ben Kotwica as a senior assistant on special teams. He's 51 years old. He served as the Rams' interim special teams coordinator for part of this past season in 2025 in LA. And prior to that, he's had stops as the full-time special teams coordinator for the Commanders, Jets, Broncos, and Falcons. So, again, not sure if there's any specific ties there. Nothing that overly sticks out in terms of direct overlap. Again, he was the interim with the Rams in 25, assistant special teams coach prior to that. Prior to that, he was in Denver. So there it is. I blanked on that because there's so many names that I'm trying to tackle here throughout this breakdown. So there you have it. He was the special teams coordinator in Denver. So put him in the Broncos quadrant where, of course, again, the likes of Declan Doyle were. You can add in Joe Lombardi, who the Ravens just brought in as a senior offensive assistant, Kerry Colbert, and Zach Grossi. We'll get into each one of these specifically in just a bit. But again, if you're trying to put this into a whole mathematical equation, if you will, that's the Denver quadrant. And those are a couple of the new names that the Ravens are bringing in reportedly. Now, what about what's been confirmed? And we'll get to Anthony Levine Sr. here in just a second, who was named special teams coordinator last night. The team has officially confirmed that. But of course, when you go to BaltimoreRavens.com, not every single one of these names is featured prominently because they haven't yet been confirmed. Perhaps that's a contractual thing. Perhaps that's just a timing thing with the organization. Jesse Minter, of course, has been confirmed. And as his bio states, he's 42, and he now leads the team that first hired him as an NFL coach. He spent 4 seasons, 2017 through 20, with the Ravens, seeing various roles on the defensive staff. So that's where this all begins. That's the man running the show. That's the man at the helm moving forward for the Ravens. Other confirmed coordinators. Declan Doyle, we know he is getting his first chance at 30 years young to call plays at the NFL level. Comes over from a successful first year with Ben Johnson as his non-primary play calling offensive coordinator, one of his top assistants. And prior to that, he was in Denver as we continue to talk about that quadrant of overlap and interconnectivity. Anthony Levine Sr., former Raven, fondly referred to as co-cap. He was an assistant special teams coordinator in Baltimore most recently, and he is going nowhere. He has been hired and promoted from within. He will be the full-time special teams coordinator for Jesse Minter in Baltimore. Got his coaching career started very quickly, not long after his playing career finished up. And Jesse released a statement earlier on this graphic right here. I'll go ahead and blow it up for you. Jesse Minter said that, quote, Anthony has been instrumental in creating the high standard that is expected of Baltimore's special teams unit. The toughness, discipline, focus, and energy he brought as a player will define his impact as a coach. He embodies what it means to be a Raven, and I'm excited to see him embrace this role with the same relentless hard work and dedication he's shown our organization for many years. So, again, he began his career with the Ravens way back when, did Anthony Levine Sr. Literally, he joined the group as a 2012 member, the first year that they won that Super Bowl, their second ever Super Bowl, their second organizational mountaintop moment. In 2012 was his first year with the Ravens. He was an undrafted safety out of Tennessee State all the way back in 2010. The Green Bay Packers gave him his first shot. And again, the Ravens brought him in 2012. He was with the team on the roster through the 2021 season, immediately began the 22 season as a player, personnel, and coaching assistant under John Harbaugh. He then went to Tennessee for a couple of years to serve as an assistant special teams coach. Then the Ravens brought him back this past year, also in that same role. And now, after interviewing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they went in a different direction for their special teams coordinator. He ultimately lands where it all began, or at least one of his beginning moments in the NFL is where he eventually and ultimately lands as the special teams coordinator in Baltimore. We all know that Anthony Weaver, of course, gets another opportunity to rejoin the Ravens organization where he was once a player. Anthony spent the last couple years in Miami as Mike McDaniel's defensive coordinator. He will now be the non-primary play calling DC under Jesse Minter. Look, when I think of Anthony Weaver, I think of somebody that is universally respected. I think of somebody that's been knocking on the door. He was a finalist for the Ravens. He interviewed for several other vacancies across the league. It just hasn't bounced his way yet, if you will. And now, as Rick Minter said the other day in his interview with The Fan on Baltimore local radio, he's an egoless figure. That's what Anthony Weaver is. He's a former defensive end, played his college ball at Notre Dame. He was a 2002. You got to go all the way back to 2002 when he was a second-round pick by the Ravens, where he spent the first 4 years of his career. He then ended his playing days with the Houston Texans from 06 to 08. He's been a coach for a long time since. Began it as a grad assistant with Florida all the way back in 2010. And again, he comes over and back to Baltimore, where he served as an assistant under John Harbaugh from 21 to 23. Most notably, he was the assistant head coach and D-line coach from 22 to 23. So, again, this guy is universally respected. I would expect him to have free reign with the defensive line. That is his calling card. That is his expertise. And that's a unit that needs a jolt. It's a unit that could use an Anthony Weaver, that presence, that acumen, that leadership. It needs it. The pass rush needs it. We'll get to the outside linebackers coach hire in just a bit. But these are your three coordinators under Jesse Minter, the three key featured hires, if you will. Of course, I think none bigger and none more important than Declan Doyle, given the state of this Ravens offense, and obviously given the importance of Lamar Jackson and his role moving forward with this first-time play caller. Again, this is courtesy of BaltimoreRavens.com. We are just kind of breaking this into topics. We began with the two new names. We're now going to what's been confirmed according to the website, according to the team itself. And here are four more assistants under Minter. Mike Mickens, of course, will be the pass game coordinator and secondary coach. He's got a ton of experience, just wrapped up a phenomenal run under Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, where really he and his staff built that Irish secondary into one of the game's most respected units league-wide. He worked with Sauce Gardner individually at Cincinnati his freshman season. I had a chance to catch up with Sauce last week on Radio Row in San Francisco. He was very complimentary of Mike Mickens. Mickens himself is a former cornerback, had a cup of coffee in the NFL, but a successful career at Cincinnati from 05 to 08. He was a seventh round pick in 2009. And again, his coaching career began at his alma mater as a defensive assistant at Cincinnati. He would later then go on to be the cornerbacks coach for Cincinnati as well, before going to Notre Dame, where he began as the cornerbacks coach. And then the last couple of years, he was the DBs coach, and a respected one at that. Really, they revere a lot of people revere that program from what they do in the secondary. So Mike Mickens is confirmed. That is official according to the team's website, as is and as are these other three. Dwayne Ledford, of course, comes over from Atlanta. This is another little quadrant, if you will, because there's a Falcons bucket. Dwayne, of course, a respected offensive line coach, accomplished a lot there over the last several seasons with the Atlanta Falcons. He began there in 2021 as the offensive line coach. Then from 24 to 25, they added run game coordinator to his title, and that's exactly what he'll do for the Ravens. He will be the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator, and reportedly, he is bringing Sean Flaherty with him. Who is Sean Flaherty? Well, Sean played college football at Towson, is originally from the Jersey area, and has worked closely with Dwayne in what became one of the most vaunted rushing attacks in recent seasons, in large part due to Bijan Robinson's greatness with the Falcons. But if you want to look into the Flaherty name, his father, Sean's father, Pat, is the current Rutgers offensive line coach. Prior to that, and this is years back, he was the offensive line coach in Miami for the Dolphins in 2019. Prior to that, he was with the Jaguars in 17 and 18. Prior to that, he was with the 49ers in 16. You go all the way back to 2004. He was the Giants offensive line coach, and he was there through 2015. So he's got a ton of experience all throughout the NFL. It's a family affair for the Flahertys. And again, Sean, kind of a Baltimore tie-in there, played his college football at Towson right there in the suburbs of Baltimore, Maryland. So Pat, again, is the father of Sean. Sean is one of Dwayne Ledford's assistants. That's not yet been confirmed, but just as you start to put together this staff, that's what it looks like. Charlie Gelman. Charlie Gelman rejoins the Ravens organization. According to the team's website, he will be the game management coordinator and a defensive assistant. Comes over from Indianapolis, where he spent the last several years with the Colts in a similar role. Began his career in Baltimore under John Harbaugh. He was an assistant. He did some intern work. He grinded, and he busted his butt to now be Daniel Stern's replacement. And guys, if you have watched Ravens football in recent seasons, you know that game day mismanagement, clock mismanagement has come back to bite them far too often. And that is something that Jesse Minter has to fix, whether it be to erase and start to shore up some of the deficiencies, some of the shortcomings that led to their reputation, the narrative, or just straight up the reality, the fact that they could not consistently close out games in the fourth quarter. It's going to be an important role that Charlie Gelman plays, particularly given Jesse Minter's first crack at this opportunity as a first-year head coach and a game day defensive play caller, which he confirmed a couple weeks ago is exactly the role that he will assume for this organization. Tyler Santucci rejoins the program. Tyler, of course, was a year ago a very respected name at the college ranks, so much so the Ravens blocked him after John Harbaugh left and was dismissed, meaning they wanted Santucci to remain with the Ravens organization. In 24, he was the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach for Georgia Tech. Prior to that, he was with Duke as a defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. That means there was some overlap there with Aeneas Peebles. And spoiler alert, Fub knows Harlan Bauer as well, who's the new outside linebackers coach. We'll get to him in just a bit. So there is some overlap here. There is some familiarity with personnel at one winning drive. But as far as Tyler Santucci is concerned, I think based on who I've spoken to, based on some conversations out there, based on what I've read, this is someone that is viewed as a potential future play caller. And the Ravens wanted to keep him in the building. So Tyler Santucci rejoins, and I should say remains with the Ravens organization. They blocked him from going anywhere else. You saw Teddy Buchanan as a rookie prior to his ACL tear take a leap. You saw Trenton Simpson in relief of Teddy Buchanan play consistent football for them. And obviously, I think we're all looking for more from Roquan, but I'm willing to give everybody from level 2 down some grace, given what wasn't happening up front from a pass rush standpoint, making life pretty difficult for guys on the back end, particularly outside corners like Nate Wiggins. And when he was outside, Marlon Humphrey, who had a very forgettable season, but I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. Let me take a break. Let me take a breath, and let me take a swig of water, and you can listen to this episode's sponsor. You already know who it is. I really do believe that one of the key reasons as to why I've been able to churn out so much content in recent weeks is because of my partnership with Factor. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals straight to your doorstep. It's ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Factor meals are designed to support your wellness journey. Factor helps eliminate stress around cooking, planning, or cleanup so you can stay focused on your goals. Heat, eat, and enjoy in just 2 minutes. We're talking about real food, real ingredients, made without refined seed oils, refined sugars, or artificial colors or sweeteners. I've been loving the salmon. Head to factor75.com or click the link below. You can use my code BobbyBFB50. That's BobbyBFB50. That'll allow you to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for a year. Again, that's code BobbyBFB50, BobbyBFB50 at factor75.com to get you 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. All that information is included in the show notes. If you're watching us live today, it's pinned in the live chat, and you can scan the QR code while you're at it in the upper right-hand side of the screen. The offer itself is only valid for new Factor customers with the code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Big thanks to them, as always, for the love and support, the belief in the program. Appreciate them. Again, the last several weeks, given this news cycle, given all these staff hires that we have to sink our teeth into, it has been really significant to just be able to walk feet away from my whole command center here and heat up really good food in 2 minutes time and have it ready to go so that I can stay right behind my desk and provide, hopefully what is top-notch content for you guys. That's BobbyBFB50. That's BobbyBFB50 at factor75.com. That'll get you 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. I appreciate them for the continued support of the program. I appreciate you guys for being with me. And before we get into literally this thing from 1,000 feet up and look at it, from a comprehensive breakdown point of view, Way2V hits me with a super chat. And he writes, did you see Qadri Ismail's thoughts on Marlon? I did not. Pass it along. Go ahead and pass it along and do me a solid. I've been working on a number of other things. Obviously, I heard what Rod Woodson had to say, and I'd be really curious to hear what Q had to say as well. So pass that along. I appreciate it. All right. Our guy Cole Jackson has been in the lab when it comes to his graphic design here, which you got to love. How about it, huh? The Canadian boy himself making it happen. And this, ladies and gentlemen, some of which is confirmed, some of which is reported, is a top-notch look at the 2026 Ravens organization from a coaching staff perspective under the first-year guy at the helm, Jesse Minter. We've already talked about several of these names, but shall we? Let's dive in and go name by name. We know that Declan Doyle is the signature hire here and the most important piece of this puzzle, given his relationship and that working relationship that will now be formed with a 2-time, should be 3-time MVP winning quarterback that hopefully when it's all said and done, and as they get ready to suit up several months from now, will be a newly extended quarterback entering year 9 in the National Football League. Declan comes to Baltimore after 1 year with Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears. Prior to that, he was the tight ends coach under Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos. As we continue to talk about our quadrants, to me, it's the guys that aren't in any way directly tied or directly overlapped with Jesse Minter and his previous stops. You've got the Denver side of things where Declan has a level of influence. You've got the Chargers ties. We'll get to that in just a bit, where Jesse spent his last couple years. And you've got some Atlanta ties as well with Dwayne Ledford and a couple other names that we'll get to. And then you just have some that like, hey, I think this guy's a good fit. Let's bring him in. That would be an Israel Woolfolk, for example, new quarterbacks coach. It's going to be working closely with Lamar Jackson. So Declan is sort of the signature, sexy type of name, given the offensive prowess in Baltimore, given the potential, given how much praise and how much conversation there's been around him after 1 year leading the Bears, really inches away from an NFC Championship game appearance. Joe Lombardi will be a senior assistant under Jesse Minter. He comes to Baltimore after several years with the Denver Broncos. Again, there is that Broncos quadrant, if you will. He was the non-primary play calling offensive coordinator under Sean Payton. Sean fired him after that loss just a couple weeks ago. That garnered a ton of attention. And he is a Sean Payton disciple, having worked closely with him and for a long time in New Orleans, which began as an offensive assistant all the way back in 2007. Okay. After that, he was promoted to quarterbacks coach, working closely with Drew Brees throughout much of that time. He was the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. He was then the quarterbacks coach back with the Saints. Then he went to the Chargers from 21 to 22 as an offensive coordinator. Then on to Denver. He's got a lot of play calling experience under his belt. But maybe most importantly for a first-year play caller in Declan Doyle, he brings a level of comfort. And I think that's a smart comfort hire, if you will, which is exactly what Rick Minter referred to it as in his interview on The Fan earlier this week, a comfort hire. I like that, and I'm sure you guys do as well. Israel Wolfork, he was the quarterbacks coach for the Arizona Cardinals in recent seasons, 23 to 25 to be exact. Prior to that, he was working with Cleveland. Prior to that, he was the wide receivers coach for Miami of Ohio. Prior to that, he was the running backs coach at that same program. And he began as a grad assistant there all the way back in 2013. Played wide receiver himself in college at Grand Valley State. And you can't hear or read about anything Grand Valley State and not immediately think about Matthew Judon. Am I right on that? Certainly feels like that's the case. So, look, when an offensive coordinator comes in, it's pretty standard that he gets to bring his quarterbacks coach with him. And Declan, I'm sure, had a level of influence in this decision. That does now show T. Martin the door. He will not be retained. T began with the Ravens organization in 2021. And then when James Urban left as quarterbacks coach, he was promoted from within and worked closely with Lamar in recent seasons. They have good rapport. Both speak very highly of one another, but T is now looking for work, and hopefully for his sake, that happens rather than he won't be looking for very long. So that's the Israel Wolfork hire. Worked closely with Kyler Murray, worked closely with the Arizona Cardinals overall operation, and now he comes to Baltimore as their quarterbacks coach in this Jesse Minter era. We talked about Kerry Colbert at the beginning of the show. He is a wide receivers coach. That is a reported hire by Matt Zenitz, and he comes over after spending the last few seasons, as he did, with the Denver Broncos as wide receivers coach. Again, had stops all throughout the college ranks, including Florida, including USC, and has worked with some pretty talented wideouts over that span. He is a former NFL wide receiver himself. Quality control will be Patrick Kramer. Patrick, I got some notes on him. First of all, he's a former quarterback himself at John Carroll University. Started his coaching career as the team's wide receivers coach. He is a part of the Atlanta staff. At least he has been over the last several seasons. So there might be some Dwayne Ledford connection here. There might be some Sean Flaherty connection here. That's the Falcons quadrant, led by Dwayne Ledford, and given some of his expertise when it comes to offensive line play and the development that the Ravens so desperately need for that unit. So again, this is somebody who's a former college quarterback. This is somebody who was a part of a successful rushing attack, began in Atlanta as an offensive assistant and then as a football analyst. And again, he'll get an opportunity, Patrick Kramer will, to be an offensive quality control assistant in Baltimore. As we continue, we will go to the Chargers quadrant, which of course begins and ends in a lot of ways with Jesse Minter, who's just spent his last two seasons under Jim Harbaugh as his defensive coordinator, turned that unit around quickly, and now who joins the Ravens organization after spending the same amount of time with the Chargers? It's passing game coordinator Marcus Brady. Marcus Brady, as you see with Cole's graphic here, Mr. Road Graders himself, has the asterisks down below to let you know what those acronyms stand for. And again, he will take over as passing game coordinator, just as he did for the Chargers over that span when Jesse Minter was there from 24 to 25. And you got to think there's some familiarity there. You got to think there is some trust there. He's a former quarterback, Marcus is. He went undrafted in 2002, played at Cal State Northridge, and Marcus has had a long career in the NFL, which began, it began all the way back in 2018 as the assistant quarterbacks coach in Indianapolis. After that, he was the quarterbacks coach promoted from within and then promoted again to offensive coordinator. So since then, he's been more of an assistant until the Chargers brought him in 2024 as passing game coordinator. So that is, as we continue, the Chargers quadrant. We talked about Dwayne Ledford, who will be the offensive line coach and run game coordinator. That's the Falcons quadrant. Also located in there is Patrick Kramer, like I mentioned, from an offensive quality control standpoint, and Sean Flaherty, who's an assistant offensive line coach. We talked about him earlier on. He's the one that has the Towson football background and has been intimately involved with the Falcons operation, which not only had solid standout offensive line play, especially this past season where they two projected starters went down. They still had one of the game's top rushing attacks. And that's an exciting scheme. That's an exciting expertise and a resume in Dwayne Ledford, along with his assistants that are coming to Baltimore, tasked with, it's a tall one. It's a tall task. You may very well be looking to replace at least two starters from the 2025 season along the Ravens offensive line. So that is no easy task for Dwayne Ledford and company. We talked about, just briefly, Zach Grossi. Zach, you can throw him in the Broncos quadrant. Zach is going to be the tight ends coach. He will replace George Godsey. Spent the past 4 seasons with the Broncos under Sean Payton. He began as an offensive quality control coach and then was promoted to pass game specialist. And now he gets an opportunity to be a positional coach from a tight ends perspective. Again, he will replace George Godsey, who went back to be a play caller at the collegiate level. So, again, you're looking at this Denver background, if we will, right? We're going back a couple of years now when the tight ends coach under Sean Payton, prior to going to Chicago last year, was Declan Doyle. Who also was there? Joe Lombardi. Who was there as well? Zach Grossi. You can see that that's a quadrant. The Chargers have a quadrant. The Falcons have a quadrant. And, of course, the collegiate side of things have a quadrant as well. Are you with me? There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of back and forth going on here. I appreciate your patience as we try to piece this whole thing together and break it down as specifically as possible. Prior to those offensive stops, by the way, in Denver, Grossi was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Southern University for a couple years. He also spent 6 seasons at the NFL level with the Bucs from 2014 to 19. He started in the scouting department and then transitioned to coaching. So he's seen the whole operation from the outside and in, and now he'll have a chance to work directly with the Ravens tight end room. The question becomes, who's going to be in that tight end room? Seeing as how, aside from Mark Andrews, everybody's entering a contract year. If I'm a betting man, several months from now, this is what the tight end room will consist of. Mark Andrews, Charlie Kolar on an extension, a day 3 tight end, and Pat Ricard as a fullback, a do-it-all fullback at that on an extension, assuming that they continue to value the fullback schematically within the confines of this new offense. That's my thought, which would obviously, the elephant in the room, be Isaiah Likely walking in free agency, hitting the open market, and being paid handsomely while doing so. I don't think that's all that far-fetched to predict. We'll wait and see how that ends up playing out. Special teams coordinator is Anthony Levine. We talked about him at length earlier on in the program. Randy Brown remains a Raven. He has been from the jump under John Harbaugh. And let me just do this real quick. You got to love the mute feature. Perhaps Jay-Z can learn a thing or two about using that on the collective. Love you, Jay-Z. Shots, shots, shots. Goodness gracious. We'll have to open up the guest lines at some point here and hope that I can get through this, shall we? Who needs sleep? I do, and I will continue to get more of it. I do have a date tonight, by the way. Hopefully, I'll be able to not be blowing. Okay, let's just keep moving. Randy Brown blowing my nose. Randy Brown remains with the Ravens organization. And of course, he was on the ground floor of hand picking Tyler Loop, having cast a wide net through all the kicking prospects last year. They spent day 3 draft capital on Tyler out of Arizona. He had a rookie year that, from a field goal percentage standpoint, was successful, but obviously had his fair share of struggles from 50 and up, had his fair struggles with the landing zone. And then obviously we all remember how the season ended. And that's something that Tyler will never forget. But we'll see how they handle things. We'll see how they handle his development. We'll see how they handle potential competition. And most importantly, we'll see how Tyler bounces back. He's somebody that's got a tremendous amount of resiliency. And clearly, if Randy Brown is sticking in Baltimore, you'd have to think that if you read the tea leaves there, he's got the backing. He's got the belief of that staff. And we'll have to see how that unfolds moving forward from a special team standpoint. We talked about Ben Kotwicka as an assistant special teams. He's got a ton of experience in that role, not as an assistant, but as an actual special teams coordinator himself. Again, this is the Denver Broncos quadrant, if you will, where he spent 23 and 24 under Sean Payton as his coordinator, and then just spent this past season as an assistant special teams coach under Sean McVay. And then at one point in the year, he was promoted to interim special teams coordinator after they fired their special teams coordinator on a full-time basis. So again, this is a former linebacker, is Ben, at Army West Point. This is a no-nonsense guy. Played for the Army West Point Cadets from 93 to 96. He is 51, and having that type of experience, having that type of old school presence alongside an Anthony Levine Sr., who's going to get his career started here from a coaching standpoint and gets his first break, if you will, as a special teams coordinator, that certainly can't hurt. As we make our way over to the right-hand side of this graphic, and I want to continue to shout out my pal and my co-host on the collective, Cole Jackson of Road Graders, for putting this together. We now get to Anthony Weaver. We've talked about him. He will be a defensive coordinator, a non-primary play calling defensive coordinator. Jesse Minter will handle that role. But Anthony Weaver rejoins the Ravens organization after a couple of years in Miami. Anthony is about as good as it gets when it comes to what defines play like a Raven, be like a Raven, coach like a Raven. And this is an egoless guy. This is someone who, yes, was frozen out this hiring cycle from a head coaching vacancy and candidacy standpoint. That included the Ravens. He was a finalist. They ultimately went in a different direction with Jesse Minter. And I'd have to think he's going to be extremely motivated to chase the greater good, to chase continued excellence on that side of the ball, continue to chase development, and positive strides forward for a defensive line that's not only his expertise, but that's in desperate need of his expertise, knowing that if that's the case, if they have success right away, then who's to say a year from now, Anthony won't be right back in the mix from a vacancy standpoint and overall head coach candidacy standpoint. Lou Esposito will be the defensive line coach. Lou is in the Michigan quadrant, if you will. Lou is 48. He's a former offensive lineman, played college football at Memphis. He comes over from Michigan, where he spent 24 and 25 as the defensive line coach. There was no overlap there, but you better believe he knows Wink Martindale well, and I'm sure he has his ways of getting in touch with Jesse Minter. Prior to that, he was at Western Michigan as a defensive coordinator and defensive line coach. This is someone who the Ravens have a lot of respect for, who obviously they have some familiarity with, given the Michigan ties, but he may be in a quadrant alone when it comes to the Ann Arbor overlap, because there was no overlap. Let's be clear. Jesse wasn't there in 24 and 25. He was with the Chargers. but I'm sure he was watching what his former program, his former employer was up to under Wink Martindale on the defensive side of the ball. And we all remember what happened just within the last few months from a head coaching standpoint. He's no longer there. That would be one Sharon Moore. Hasn't exactly been a clean living couple years for the Michigan program, but that's a conversation for another time. Lou Esposito will be the Ravens defensive line coach. That brings us to Harland Bauer. Harland, this is an interesting one here. Harland Bauer joins the Ravens organization, having spent the last several seasons with Duke. That means that he overlapped with Aeneas Peebles, who was one of the Ravens' day 3 rookies that they brought in last year, was a healthy scratch throughout the majority of the second half of the season. Not sure if that was due to maybe their lack of trust in him against the run, but he's somebody that is a player that wants to be developed and can be great. He transferred from Duke to Virginia Tech. And again, because he transferred from Duke, that's how we got to know Harland Bauer. He is the new outside linebackers coach for the Ravens. He's been with Duke since 2022. He coached all ACC defensive ends Vincent Anthony and Wesley Williams in 2025. Look out for those names going to the next level. And again, now he is tasked with bringing the Ravens outside linebacker room, which obviously has not been good enough in recent seasons, to the next level from a production standpoint, from a development standpoint, and from an overall culture standpoint. So, Harland Bauer, as we continue to make our way down the list, can be a key piece to the Ravens defensive puzzle. We talked extensively about Tyler Santucci. We talked extensively about Mike Mickens, and that now brings us to PJ Volker. PJ Volker will be the defensive backs coach. I believe that's the safeties coach and pass game. Excuse me. Defensive back. I was looking at the wrong column. PJ Volker will be the safeties coach. Okay. He's going to be a defensive assistant under Jesse Minter. He comes over from Annapolis, where he spent the last several seasons working as the defensive coordinator for the midshipmen. Okay. They went 10-3, big wins over Air Force and Army. Obviously, if you guys follow those games, those service games, you know that means a lot for those institutions. So good. Look, the point here is these guys go way back. Jesse and PJ go way back. They're good friends. And for PJ, it's pretty simple. He's just going to be moving, I would think. Or maybe he doesn't even have to move. But if he does, it's not that big of a lift coming from the Annapolis area. So there's some familiarity there. There's friendship there. And that is going to be your safeties coach. Remember, Donald DeLisio, who was the DB's coach, working closely with that group, went to the Giants with John Harbaugh after being brought over from Kansas City prior to this past season. So there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of change. But PJ Volker and Jesse Minter, there's no doubt they're each other's confidants. They're each other's buddies. And now they're going to be on the same staff at the NFL level. As for Miles Taylor, you can throw him in our Chargers quadrant that we're putting together here. He had agreed to become the defensive backs coach at Nebraska. Okay. He was a coaching fellow under Jesse Minter on the defensive side of the ball last year in LA. He literally had agreed he was going to become the next defensive backs coach at Nebraska until they were like, yo, the Ravens, why don't you come to Baltimore? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go to the NFL. And now he's the assistant defensive backs coach for the Ravens organization. Again, going to be working closely with Mike Mickens, going to be working closely with PJ Volker, going to be working closely with Jesse Minter. And this is somebody that that's just another member of their overall operation. We talked about Charlie Gelman, and we certainly have discussed, maybe not at length, but we've discussed Rick Minter quite a bit as well. Rick has almost 50 years of experience at the NFL level. Rick gave his son his start, if you will, at Notre Dame in 2006. That was one of his many stops over the years for Rick. He was the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. Let's see, this was 2005 to 2007. He was also there from 92 to 93. Okay, Rick's coaching career goes all the way back to 1977 when he was a grad assistant for Henderson State. Most recently, okay, he was a senior defensive assistant under Jesse Minter for the Chargers from 24 to 25. That's kind of cool. Now he's going to the Ravens organization as a senior defensive analyst. By the way, he was on that national championship team as well as the interim linebackers coach for the Michigan Wolverines in 23 when they won it all. So look, man, this is pretty cool how Jesse's going about this from a staff compiling standpoint. You've got, it's not, a bro club or a gentleman's club. This is a group of hungry, talented, up and coming, experience blended with youthful exuberance type of staff that Jesse is putting together. And on paper, you hit it out of the park. It's only on paper. And as Roquan Smith said last year, paper champs, as the Ravens were crowned prior to the 25 season, doesn't get you very far. So on paper, for the next 6 months, however many months to September, this is a darn good staff. This is a compelling, enticing, insightful, young, experienced, and hungry staff. But it's on paper for the foreseeable future, and it's up to, obviously, the organization and them collectively as a whole to put it all together moving forward. So that right there is your breakdown at a glance of the 2026-2027 Ravens organization. And I'm sure there'll be more updates. But as of right now, that's what's happening. And I want to say thanks to FanDuel for the continued support of the program. Sportsbook.fanduel.com is where you can go check them out. Right now, got some NBA. Who's playing tonight? Right down the road from me, up the road from me in Orlando. It's the Bucks and Magic. Tonight they're doing a little play the song. The Magic aim to keep their theme song playing with a fourth straight win. $10 wager. Wins over $119. And you see a few of the same game parlay action they got going on here. Money line, Anthony Black to score 20 or more points. Desmond Bane to score 20 or more points. Jalen Suggs to record 6 or more assists. And there's a bunch of NBA in action tonight if you're interested in checking it out. Hawks are at the Hornets. Bucks at the Magic. Wizards at the Cavaliers. Knicks at the 76ers, so on and so forth. If you're not interested in the NBA, check out one of the many things they've got going on, including the Winter Olympics that are taking place from Milan, Italy. Man, did you guys see Lindsey Vohn's crash last week? That was freaking heartbreaking. She's an All-American. Cannot believe she took that hard of a fall. I think she's had 2 or 3 follow-up surgeries since, and what I believe is a broken leg. But anyway, take a look at the Olympics. Nothing better. The pinnacle of sport. Big thanks to FanDuel for the continued support of my program. And I think that'll do it, seeing as how my voice is quite literally beginning to give. So yeah, appreciate you guys for hanging out. Thanks to Preston Automotive Group. Thanks to Factor. Thanks to FanDuel. Thanks to all of you guys. Like the video on your way out if you could. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Consider becoming a channel member or a gift-giving membership. And I will be back. Appreciate all of you guys. Hope you're enjoying the week. Feels relatively slow compared to recent weeks, but it'll be ramped up soon time. And of course, the combine's right around the corner as well. So we have that to look forward to. Appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you soon.